The Edo State People's Democratic Party, PDP, governorship primary to produce the party's flag bearer for this year's off-cycle election will be held in February 2024. Now, it has been dubbed a fight to finish among the growing number of aspirants in the race. This is because of the bitterness and the animosity that has been witnessed so far in the build-up to the election scheduled for the 21st of September to determine Governor Godwin Obaseki's successor.
The primary is expected to be a fierce contest involving Governor Obaseki's appointed aspirant, so far Ose Anenih, Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu, Anselm Ojezwa, who is a former chairman of the All Progressive Congress, who followed Obaseki to the PDP, and of course John Yakubu, a former chairman of Isan Northeast local government area, and whoever emerges as also the consensus choice of the legacy coalition led by Chief Dan Obi, PDP's national vice chairman South-South, who is also at war with Obaseki. Ose Anenih appears to be the man to beat in the race so far for the party's ticket. But his challenge is the fact that he has been anointed by Governor Godwin Obaseki, who of course is seemingly looking like, godfather of today's Edo politics.
Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu, a former member of the Edo State House of Assembly and the House of Representatives, insisted that loyalty to Obaseki had nothing to do with his ambition, and no one can stop his aspiration to take part in the primaries on the platform of the PDP and succeed Obaseki. Joining us this morning from Edo State, PDP chieftain Ose Anenih. Thank you very much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year to you too. Counting down to what will be dubbed the fight to the finish, like some would say. There's so much that's been happening with Edo State politics. I think I'll start off with the position and the chances of Edo Central senatorial district emerging. I did hear that there was a meeting that happened a few weeks back or a few days back where there was an agreement that by the 6th of January, that would be tomorrow, they would then find one candidate to represent Edo Central senatorial district. So talk to us about the strength of these senatorial districts emerging as the winner in the governorship elections.
Thank you very much. I think what has emerged, to my mind, is sort of a narrative spin. I don't want to call it propaganda on what the reality is. And I think my concern is the media is buying into these narratives. For instance, you opened by saying that my aspirant, Ose Anenih, is the governor's appointed candidate. That isn't true. You say it's, this contest is rife with bitterness and animosity. That also isn't true. Just yesterday, you referenced the special committee, this Edo Central PDP special committee. They had a meeting yesterday ahead of the Saturday 6th meeting, and two aspirants in a show of, I think, brotherly love and putting forward the interests of Edo Central stepped down for Barrister Ose Anenih. Honorable Right Honorable Tola stepped down, and Kenneth Abule may also step down. And so, one of the things I always talk about when I speak about the PDP is our DNA of conflict and dispute resolution. And that sort of is what you're seeing playing out. So on Saturday, Edo Central PDP is going to take, we think, a consensus position on who our best candidate is, who our best aspirant is. It's by no means certain that we will get the nod, which goes sort of like to the third concern I have when people say our candidate is favored to win or he's the most favored. We've been on the road. We got in last night at about 10 p.m., knocking on doors, trying to convince people not really to endorse our aspirant, but on the imperative of peace and unity within the party. And we saw this play out at the national election. The party is divided going into what will be heavily contested elections. We have challenges from the APC and from the Labour Party. We say it everywhere, we will lose the election. I'm not just a PDP chieftain, I'm a legacy PDP chieftain. And so if you see me coming out supporting one candidate, if you see me going out speaking about peace, unity as the only way forward, it's our reality. It really is our reality. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah.
Let me just finish this thought. It really is important to us to focus on what the issues are. As a party, it isn't about godfatherism or anointing candidates. It isn't about denying the rights of anybody to contest. Philip Shaibu was good enough, for instance, to be a deputy governor under the PDP. No one is going to come out to say he isn't competent. But there are more competent candidates. No one is going to come out and say he isn't compassionate, but there are more compassionate aspirants. And we will not deny anybody the right. But what we think is important is in allowing everybody to express their freedoms and rights to contest, we need to understand that after our primaries in February, there's a general election we need to win, and we need to avoid the mistakes we made earlier in February.
Yeah. All right. Good opening for you, and apologies for the the points that you noted. I also want to ask this seems to be the most not the most highly contested Edo election, because 2019 was pretty tough with Governor Obaseki of course moving to the PDP and the Oshomole factor back then. You remember it was one of the biggest conversations in Nigeria back then. Now we're talking about fresh elections this year. I don't think we've seen this many candidates trying to win Edo State. Even if the primaries haven't been done, but there are just so many people. There's Olumide Akpata. I've honestly never seen this number of people trying to win Edo State. So tell me why that is, and then also talk a little bit more about the Obaseki factor. You've said there's nothing like godfatherism here, but there's people who have said that yes, he will pick a candidate that will take over from him, and that's the very first step to godfatherism according to Nigerian politics.
Well, I'll answer your second question first before I talk about why there's so much interest in the Edo election. Last week, for instance, I was in my village, Uromi. I spoke to the ward executives. I don't know if you saw the news stories, where about 55 of them, the entire ward executives of Ose Anenih Northeast local government area, came out to endorse the aspirant. I haven't spoken to Governor Obaseki. I haven't met him in this election cycle. What we did had nothing to do with godfatherism or imposition or his interests or his agenda. And I think that's I want, away from what happened in 2020, where there was an attempt by the APC, Oshomole, and President Tinubu, former Governor Tinubu at the time, to put, to have their will on the outcomes of the 2020 election. I think this is markedly different. And so that allows me to pivot to your first question: why is there so much interest in Edo State? I think what this reminds me of is what happened under the PDPs, where we saw the transformation when Obasanjo transformed the economy and it was growing. And you actually saw a lot of people leaving well-paid jobs abroad and coming back, to pursue their careers in Nigeria. I think what has happened under the PDP, under Governor Obaseki's leadership, is he sort of has set out a template that allows people, look at the state and say, you know what, I can actually build on what he has done and do things transformational. And that's why Barrister Ose Anenih is in the race. We call him a transformational leader because even though Obaseki was, the pilot or captain of an economy that was accelerated, we feel there might be certain areas where there were certain disconnects between what the people wanted and what he felt the state needed to do. And so he has laid a very, very robust foundation of growth. But what we are trying to do now is come out and let people understand that we have not just a commitment to growth, but a commitment to inclusive and transformative growth. So I think that's why you have so many people coming into the race. And it's exciting. I think as an Edo citizen, when you look across the field, obviously, I'm wearing the hat. I believe my candidate is the most competent and the most compassionate. But if you look across Labour Party, you have aspirants like Cedric Ogun and Olumide Akpata. Even, God forbid, you look across APC, you have a Clem Agba. I think Edo State, if democracy is allowed to truly play it, truly function, if we don't see the ridiculousness we saw in the general elections in February and the votes of the people count, I'm optimistic that we'll end up with a governor that truly will serve the interests of the greater Edo people. And I'm hopeful that it's Dr. Ose Anenih.
All right. If, excuse me, your candidate emerges the winner of the 2024 gubernatorial elections, talk to us about what he will come to meet in office. And I ask this because what we see a number of times, even at the federal level, is that they come and they complain about what they've met. For example, we've already started hearing a number of complaints about how even the roads leading to the over 182 wards would be a challenge. Getting election materials, we're counting down to elections in September 2024, but even getting election materials across to these wards would be a challenge. And people are already complaining about how towards the past couple of months, governorship has, or governance has taken backseat because of the challenges or the fights between the governor and his deputy. So what would you say is the current situation of Edo State in terms of infrastructure development, and what will your candidates be coming to meet should he win?
So I hope my governor will forgive me for my honesty. I think, okay, so let me try and explain this. So what has happened is that federal government roads have failed in Edo State. And what then happened? So, we're building a 4-star hotel in Ekpoma. And what we noticed is you now see trailers and heavy duty vehicles avoiding the federal government roads and then entering state government, trying to drive through town. And you've degraded the federal government roads, and then you degrade inner city roads that aren't built or engineered to carry that type of weight from those heavy vehicles. And so you see, despite the fact that he has done some work with infrastructure, I think maybe politically, his decision and the federal government's, I think, petty decision to abandon federal government roads, and Obasanjo's decision to not use limited state resources repairing what ultimately is the federal government's responsibility, has sort of seeded this impression that he didn't do anything on infrastructure, and therefore his government has failed. But I'm a pollster. We polled for the presidential elections, and the pain points of the average Edo citizen isn't just roads. It's insecurity, it's jobs, it's unemployment, it's healthcare, it's education. And if you look at those other sectors, for instance, I know Edo State has the lowest out-of-school children in Nigeria. I know we have one of the lowest infant and neonatal and maternal mortality rates in Nigeria. I know we have the best educational program in Edo Best. I know we have the best, most modernized civil service in Edo State. And so when you talk about what is hopefully my aspirant and my candidate and the future governor, Dr. Ose Anenih, are going to inherit, yes, there are deficits, there are severe infrastructural deficits. I'm from Uromi in Edo Central. We have an acute water scarcity problem, but there are also things that we can build on. So even in Edo Central, we have the Uboha water works that Governor Basiki has started. Reticulation has gotten to parts of Uromi, but hasn't extended across the whole state. I think it's a basic fundamental human right, and it's something we are committed to doing if we get into office. And so there are good things, but there's also some work to be done. I'm not going to say that Basiki scored 100%, but I think he did well enough within the area that he felt were priority areas for him. He has laid, like I said, I referenced accelerated economic growth. What we're trying to do now is to build on that and actually link it with the people and their pockets.
So you agree that he could have done a lot better,
everybody
many
could.
aspects.
Everybody could. Obama could have done better. Clinton could have done better. I see my sisters. But he did his best, and we'll continue from there. We won't be distracted by finger pointing or anything. I think he did his best.
We could agree on that, that was his best, but the challenge is that it's an 8-year period, if this is all we could achieve in 8 years, it's not. I don't know that a lot of people will give that a pass mark, but Obasanjo's time is up, so.
No, but so my brother, I think, and forgive me for pushing back. I think it's almost pedantic to say you can only do development when you build roads and bridges. And I always use River State, for instance, where Wike was Mr. Projects and he did roads and bridges, but River State was one of the poorest states in the country. And
I
so
agree.
if you fail to link economic growth with the people and your infrastructure, then there's a problem.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. So I want you to speak a little bit more about the opposition. Philip Shaibu, I don't know if we have any confirmation on what party he eventually will be running under, if it might be the PDP or not. And of course, the Labour Party factor in Edo State. It seemed to be very, very, very big during the presidential elections. I don't know if it still has that fire today. Of course, if these are concerns that you have in Edo State, is Edo State still a PDP state, or is it totally up for grabs as it stands?
So the PDP is a family. So when you talk about our opposition and you reference Philip Shaibu and not the people in opposition camps, it's a little bit amusing. We were together with Philip Shaibu when our leader, Chief Dan Obi, hosted everybody to this annual Christmas event he holds in his village in Edo North. And all the PDP aspirants were there. Barrister Ose Anenih, Philip Shaibu, Anselm Ojezwa, everybody was there. We truly are a family. We might compete because only one person ultimately is going to become governor, so we might compete among ourselves, but there really isn't any bad blood or animosity definitely between our camp and Comrade Philip Shaibu. When you talk about opposition outside our party now, for instance, in the APC, I would struggle to understand why any Nigerian or any Edo citizen will look at the poverty that the APC has and suffering they've imparted on us, on the lives of every single Nigerian, even yourselves in the studio. We're hearing rumors that there's going to be another increase in price fuel. There's another cash scarcity. There's still rising insecurity. We saw what happened in Plateau recently. Why would anybody, under any reason, vote for the APC? It's ridiculous. And so I would rather focus on the Labour Party. I think a lot of people mistake the obedient movement for the Labour Party. And so the tsunami we saw in February was down to, the candidature of Peter Obi and the people supporting him. We have had 3 out-of-cycle elections where the Labour Party barely made a blimp. We don't want to dismiss them, because I think the obedient movement was one of the strongest in Edo State. And we are actually actively courting them because we believe our values and theirs sort of align. And so we're not dismissing them. But I don't think at this point in time we are too worried about general election. We're focused on crossing this first finish line of our primaries. And those are the engagements we're having. If you recall, we have a very strict INEC timetable. So campaigns haven't really started. So all of this is me not actually speaking to Edo people. We will. But I'm speaking to fellow PDP members, fellow PDP leaders, that they need to understand that if we don't come together and unite, if we don't mend these fences and put aside egos and past hurts and grievances, we will not win the election.
Will you be willing to support anybody who emerges from the PDP? If it's not Ose Anenih eventually, will the PDP still unite and support whoever it is that emerges, including yourself?
Of course, I always tell the story of, if you recall, I ran for the House of Reps candidacy in 2022, and I wasn't too happy with the way things played out. I didn't get the ticket. But the first thing I did was, when Louis Osobase was declared the winner of the primaries we held, I went to the cameras, there were TV stations there, I held up his hand and I pointed to him as the winner. I was the only person that actually signed the result sheet. I don't think Louis signed. He was too excited celebrating with his supporters. And so this idea that, if you don't get it, you must destroy, pull down the house, isn't something that, I support or approve of. It isn't, it isn't our culture in the PDP in Edo State, at least. Whoever emerges is a PDP candidate and we will support them fully. What I truly believe that, we are making the superior argument. I truly believe that we are the ones putting in the hard work. I truly believe that we are the only ones committed to uniting this party so that we can be successful in September. And so I believe we'll win, but regardless of that, whoever emerges will absolutely get my support.
How exactly can we ensure that when we get a new administration in Edo State, we don't see the kind of disagreements that we saw with the current administration, especially towards the end? And to be honest, is not particular to Edo State. We've seen it happening in a number of states where the president and the governor and the deputy governor are not really able to find a good working relationship. So are there fears and concerns that that might be an issue in the next administration?
I would say yes, so that if God forbid it happens, I'll be on record of having said it. I think we can try and be idealistic of what we would want to have. I would, for instance, love to have a deputy that is on the same page ideologically with my candidate. But this is a political process, and even the decision of picking who ultimately becomes the deputy governor must go through a political process. It's not really one person's decision to go. That's not how democracies work. So, for instance, we might have to cede the seats to one segment of our party or the other just to get their buy-in. I think part of what we are also doing in the engagements we're having across the state is actually sharing Dr. Ighodalo's ideology, sharing his priority reason and his priority areas, telling people, regardless of who they are, these are the reasons why we're running, these are the things we're trying to achieve. And if you agree with them, join me on this journey. So I'm hoping by the time we get past the primaries and get to the point where we are selecting a deputy governorship candidate, the people and party members who will make that decision ultimately will pick somebody who closely aligns with our candidate's vision. One of the things that, and when you talk about these disputes between governors and the deputies, one of the reasons why I think we'll avoid that is that Dr. Aswa is a true Democrat. He's, as most of you know, he's one of our most foremost legal minds in the country. And so he understands very clearly the constitutional roles of the governor and the deputy and the separation therein. And I don't think there'll be any disputes or clashes. He won't break the law. He'll respect the office of the constitutional office of the deputy governor. And so there might be personal disagreements, but I don't think there'll be, governance or political ones. So I'm not too worried about that. But I'm just hoping, as a Democrat, that we get someone who is best fit to my candidate's vision.
Oh. Well, I mean, as the people of Edo State that will benefit, I'm looking forward to seeing, someone, of quality, in Edo State. I'm from Edo State as well as so I'm looking forward to it, and I think that from, all the candidate that we've seen, this is, for me, is the best outing so far. And I really would like to see that somebody of quality, eventually emerges.
I appreciate that. I'll let you guys in on the secret. I haven't really been as excited as I am about the political process and about any candidate since Dr. Ose Anenih. And I think maybe that worries me. And so maybe if I have any call to action to make, it's that citizens need to understand that in a democracy, it's not always the best candidate or the most competent candidate that wins. And so I absolutely believe that Dr. Ose Anenih is the most competent candidate. But if citizens don't register in political parties and don't take part in the process that throws up ad hoc delegates who then elect candidates, you might end up with less than optimal outcomes. So I want to just encourage everybody to get involved in the process, to particularly engage with our process and have conversations with us. And I'm excited about the future of Edo State.
All right. We certainly wish Edo State all the best. We'll be waiting to see what the result of the meeting tomorrow will be and what the hopes for Edo Central are, and as well Edo as a state is. Ose Anenih, thank you very much for your time with us this morning. We wish you all the best. And we wish Edo State all the best.
Thank you so much. My first interview, so thank you guys.
You did really brilliantly. Well done.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.